Welcome to the newest episode of All Things LOCS, the show where we are discussing everything related to leadership, operations, culture, strategies for growth for you independent private practice owners and healthcare leaders. Now, today I want to talk to you about accountability. We all discuss it. A lot of us don't know exactly what it is, but the one thing that we all have a common problem with is that we always want more of it, and it can't seem to get enough of it. But really what I want to discuss today is not just why do we have challenges with accountability, right? You might ask yourself the questions of why do I have to keep reminding people of the same thing? Or why am I always following up? I wish the employees or somebody would take ownership on this. That is a part of accountability. But we're going to really be breaking down exactly what it means to have an organization that is accountable. What does it look like? What does it sound like? How do you actually create a culture built around accountability? And then if you're lacking in it, what you can do to actually start improving it. So let's just get going right away. I mentioned some of the questions that we ask ourselves as leaders. Why do I got to keep coming back to remind the person or tell them? It's like the sixth time I've told them how to do this, right? And we really want employees to, when we talk about taking ownership, we really want employees to actually just be able to do their job, identify problems, come up with solutions, right? How many of you out there are saying, they come to me too often? Or maybe you don't say it exactly like that, but you just say the employees come to me a lot and I can't get I can't get my own work done. And that was a challenge I had way back in the day. Was they're coming to me all day long. I feel like I'm just putting out fires. Why can't they do this themselves? Now we're going to get into what I was actually doing there. But I'm sure that's, really common for a lot of you out there too. And maybe you've hired a manager to alleviate the stress and they're still coming to you. Or maybe you are the manager in this instance, and they're coming to you so often you can't actually help grow the practice. And now you're maybe getting some heat from the owner or from executives. So when we talk about, really understanding what does it mean to be accountable, first and foremost, we have to understand, where does that actually start? Like, you can't hold somebody accountable for something they don't know exists. And what I mean by that is, what are the outcomes that you want your employees to achieve? That's really the most important thing, is what's the benchmark, right? So what I mean by that is, let's keep it in very simplistic terms. And I wouldn't do this, but I did this back in the day, but let's talk about visit numbers. Maybe you have clinicians, doctors, and you want them to see a certain amount of visits per week. Okay. Do they know that? Or I gave an example recently of an occupational therapist who was getting a lot of heat from her owner because of her clinic numbers were lower than what he expected. And she flat out said, I never even knew that was the number. So, I would have gladly seen that number if I knew that's what I was chasing after. So it's, do you actually know the outcome that you want for employees? And I've talked to a lot of owners. They don't actually even know what their outcomes for the employees are. So if you're not sure what they are, how the hell can the employees know what they're exactly supposed to do? And therefore, how can they keep themselves accountable? So understand the outcome. Maybe it's a metric, KPI, whatever it may be. Know it, have it make sense for you and your organization, and then for the love of God, please communicate that to the employee. Because then this also comes down to when we want to get the best out of employees. Right? And a lot of you say, I really want employees who are going to come here, work hard, get great outcomes, stay a long time within my company. But do you actually know what success looks like for them? And does the employee know what success looks like for them? Right? Or are we putting employees in positions where they're going to fail? And I know nobody voluntarily says, I want to put this employee in a position to fail, because then obviously they're going to do a poor job and you're going to end up letting them go. But ultimately, many of us do that exact thing. We put people in roles they're not meant for, or we give them, quotas or numbers that they can't achieve. And then we want to get frustrated, upset, angry, pissed, whatever. Again, it would be like taking, oh my God. I remember for the longest time, and I worked with acupuncturists. Acupuncture is a very different type of healthcare, right? We talk about a lot of these days about one-on-one care now. And you're seeing out more physical therapy, occupational therapy. That is acupuncture to a T. But then I'm working with an organization and they're trying to get the acupuncturists busier, get the numbers up. And they're struggling. And I'm like, you don't get it. Like, you're not understanding that this is a job This is a career pathway that isn't predicated on volume, but you're trying to make it a volume game. It's never going to work, and you're just going to continuously be, in that case, they're pissed off and frustrated instead of just accepting what does the role actually call for, right? And then when we talk about, employees who have the ability to create solutions. And again, a lot of owners will say, I want employees to come to me with solutions, but is it the right environment for that? So you ultimately, do I have somebody in place who will take ownership of the situation, try to influence it in a positive fashion? And realistically, you want to also have accountability. The way we're laying this out is also understanding that you're looking for something that's consistent, right? Because again, you want somebody who's not going to come to you over and over again. You want consistent experiences, consistent outcomes. Now, part of accountability itself, so that's understanding, all right, what do I need to do within my own organization to create it? You also have to understand that you are the standard bearer. I'm going to dive into this a little bit more, but you are the standard bearer as the leader in the organization. And accountability starts with you. So whatever you desire for employees, you have to be willing to do yourself. And I remember talking to a business owner, and he said that exact same thing. He said, we were helping him out with his core values. And he goes, you know what? Accountability, that has to be one of my top values for the employees, because he had that little caveat. And I just said to him, I just called him out nicely, obviously. I was like, do you think you keep yourself accountable to the level that you would want employees? And he freely admitted, so I give him a lot of credit, freely admitted no. So if you're not willing to do it, then why should you expect, or why should you demand that they do it as well? So don't recommend something or don't desire something within your team that you're not willing to do yourself. And when we talk about where does accountability actually break down? It's really knowing who do you want to be responsible for certain things in your practice. So if I said to you, Dr. Smith, who's responsible for maintaining employee retention or patient retention, or who's really in charge of making sure that our schedule is being utilized to its best possible fashions? Is it going to just be everybody, or it's a collective effort? Or do you have a specific person? No, it's Darlene. Darlene is my front desk administrator, my practice manager, who's in charge of that. Or is it, Dr. Dan? He's in charge of the patient retention because he's our clinic head clinician. So do you know who's in charge of the things that matter the most to you and the things that get measured? And then again, do the employees know that? So if you said Dr. Dan's in charge of patient retention, does Dr. Dan and the rest of the team know that? And that's usually where, when we talk about, owning an outcome, so it really comes down to who is in charge of improving that aspect of your business, right? You know who the marketing department is. So why not have somebody in charge, or at least lead these other aspects of the business that are honestly very important? And if you think everybody's doing it collectively, which is what a lot of organizations do, I got a great team, they just self-manage each other. No, they don't. And that's not a knock on them, but human psychology is we're going to assume somebody else is taking care of it. Oh, I assumed that person made the phone call. Or I assumed that person sent out the pre-authorization. So when we talk about taking ownership, it's really who is in charge of X, Y, Z, everything, right? And then we talked about a little bit of the outcomes. And expectations get thrown around in business a lot, right? So what do I expect from you? Now, I've gotten away from expectations a bit, because sometimes realistically as an owner or somebody who's just maybe a high level, A+ employee, you're a driver, you're determined, your expectations are pretty damn high for yourself. But then what we like to typically do is also create our expectations for everybody else based on ourselves. So I work 60 hours a week. I, do this, I do that. Therefore, I expect everybody else to do the same thing. And that's not realistic. So it's really, firmly understanding what are the standards that you want represented in your business. And that's what I've actually gravitated towards. And I think it's Gary Vee. He talks a lot about that. He's like, stop the expectations and start establishing standards, because then the standards of your organization, that creates the behaviors, right? The values and the standards to go together. So what do you want to see from people every single day? That's your standard. And that's why you don't even need to have expectation. I expect you to work hard. That's crap. Or I expect you to show up on time. That's not expectations. Versus we're very patient oriented, and then your behaviors reflect the patient orientation. Versus if you say, well, we're so patient oriented, or we're really worried about patient outcomes, and then you're booking 8 patients in an hour for for one provider, one clinician. Are you really, patient oriented, or is it just lip service? So that's why the behaviors have to reflect. And then we talk, responsibility without any kind of authority. You have a manager, or you have somebody who is, in charge. You say, Dan, I have somebody who manages this, manages the, employee retention, manages my billing. Do you give them the ability to hold other team members accountable? And I'm talking about team members that in their sphere, their department. I'm not telling you to hold necessarily, a billing manager, hold a doctor responsible, but realistically, you might say, hey, look, if it's a billing mistake, then I want you to hold them responsible. So even in certain scenarios, it makes sense. But then if you don't give these managers or department heads any kind of authority, and then you're scratching your head saying, why the hell are you guys still coming to me? You have to give managers not just responsibilities, because that's what a lot of people want to do. They say, here's everything you get to do now, but then if you want to, change somebody's schedules or approve a salary increase or, overtime or hiring decisions, you got to come back to me. So then what are they really doing? And just released, coming out with an episode or soon, if not already did, but about this aspect. And I've talked about this numerous times. So no matter if it's, the most recent episode or the one's coming out, I'll talk about this till I'm blue in the face, which is you hire people to do a job, so let them do it. And if people are superseding the manager and coming to you, you have to start wondering, did I set them up to be successful? Right? So give them the authority. And if you don't trust them to have the authority, you hired the wrong person, or you didn't train them the right way. So even for that standpoint, you have to look at yourself and say, did I actually set them up, in the right way to be successful, to really help us grow? And we talked about, measuring. Do you keep any data, any metrics? We talked about KPIs a few weeks back. You could have data to you blue in the face, but is it data and information that actually helps your organization improve and progress? And if team members don't know that, right? If you don't know, maybe your fourth quarter target for your outpatient clinic is 500 visits a week, or maybe it's 100 visits a week. Okay, is it reasonable for that to be the goal, number one? And then does the team know how they're actually going to achieve it? Does the team know that it's even the goal, right? So if you're in that practice that's, hey, we're shooting for 500 total visits this week, and you're at 200 right now, and I'm filming this on August 14th, is that realistic? Maybe for you it might be. Maybe for most organizations to say absolutely not. But maybe you're at 430, and you say, I want to get to 500. It means nothing if you don't tell the rest of the team. Your goals have to be aligned with their goals. Now, one aspect of caring leaders, as we're still talking about reasons that accountability falls apart or doesn't happen at all. You have a leader who's super caring about the team. They love them. They want what's best for them. But then they do everything for them. But they fix every mistake. They come to their rescue, right? Because they think they're helping them and doing them a favor. And I mentioned myself at the beginning, how I was putting out fires all day. Now, part of that was, as much as I complained about it, because I couldn't get my own work done, I was still treating patients, still doing what we all love to do, which is do notes. I'm getting backed up on notes because people are coming to me all day, every day. But then I also wore that like a badge of honor, right? They're coming to me, and I wasn't saying this out loud, but I know in my head I was saying this and thinking this. Made me feel good that I was needed, and I was so important that they'd come to me, not realizing that I was creating a dependence. And then at some point it was, why can't they figure this stuff out by themselves? Or why, right? Why can't they work through this problem themselves or talk to another colleague? Because they weren't really coming to me with, hey, Dan, I tried 5 solutions and, this is everything that I did, nothing worked. I'd be fine with that. It was, hey, I've tried one thing and I'm not really sure what to do. What do you think? And then stupidly, again, I would just a lot of times give them the answer. Or if they made a mistake, I would just jump in and fix it. None wrong fixing mistakes when they're, life-threatening mistakes. Hey, you messed up on surgery. This is not the time and space to be, hey, let me walk you through this. And no, you need a resolution here. But those kind of instances are minimal. Most of the time, it's stuff that really create learning opportunities for employees. So you gotta also realize, am I, as the manager or the owner, am I actually maybe either creating or, greatly contributing to the lack of accountability here? Am I giving them the opportunity to actually even be accountable? And then, a big one really is, you've laid out all that. Maybe you've gotten up to this point, you're saying, cool, I'm on a good point because I've done all that. We know what our outcomes are. I know them. The team knows them. We know who's in charge of what. So you're doing great. But then the question is, what happens when somebody violates your standards? Do you do anything? Do you have a conversation with them? And I'm not talking about a conversation where it's just, hey, it's okay, don't worry about it. Then it's not a standard, right? Your standards are supposed to be non-negotiable, right? We're all supposed to have business standards. All of you have some kind of personal standard. And you might not know exactly what they are, but you know when somebody violates them because based on how you feel. It's either you get upset, you cry, you get pissed, you get something. It's what we like to call, I just got triggered. They violated a standard of yours. When that happens in business, what do you do? Right? So if my standard is, we're an organization that is patient focused, number one. And then you see an employee do something that is not patient focused. What do you do there? Do you let it slide? Do you talk, to the person or people that were responsible for that? And if you talk to them, what's that conversation like? Is it an opportunity to figure out, all right, why did we actually take that route? Did I maybe, as a leader, not teach you accordingly? Did I not train you accordingly? Or is it, no, you know what? We've talked about this. I trained you. You understood it. You've demonstrated it time and time again. You're not giving me a reason why, you didn't do something today, or, because again, I get it. Personal stuff comes up. I know we always say keep personal things at home, but this is just some stuff. Hey, my mom's sick, like really sick, cancer. It was on my head. I kind of fucked up. It's like, all right, not a big deal. But or is it an instance where I just decided not to do it? All right. So let's talk about why that's important. Let's talk about how that affects the patients, how that affects us. Then more importantly, do you just leave it at that? What happens if they do it again? Are there any, at some point, there has to be some kind of consequences. Now, you have to decide what those consequences are. But when people violate your standards, which you said, these are my non-negotiables, and you don't do anything about it, you're telling every single employee that they're not really your standards. And now they're going to start saying, why the hell should I do this thing? So I'll give you a good example. It would be if you said to your clinicians, and I know most of you wouldn't do this, but it's really powerful when you do. I'd like, if not the clinician, maybe one of their assistants, somebody as part of their team to walk the patient to the front desk. And you've done it for every single patient for the last 3 months. And then you see it not happening. Okay, let's have a conversation about that. Then you see it not happening again. Now, maybe you didn't have the conversation. And then all of a sudden, it's not just that one clinician's patients who are not being walked up. It's now you're seeing it for everybody because they're saying, every employee is saying the same thing. If they're not going to do it, why should I? And I know all of you out there are probably going to say, yeah, but I have employees who, they're just, they're A+ employees. They're going to do it. Most of us don't have A-plus employees across the board. So yeah, your A-plus employee might say, you know what, this is bull crap that I'm doing this and they're not, and there's no ramifications for that person. I'm just going to do it because I know it's best. That's not the majority of employees. And that's not a knock on the employees because I think most of them are pretty damn awesome. But again, we're talking human psychology. They're not going to do it. Human psychology looks for the easiest ways that we can get tasks done. So if we see somebody else cutting corners, most of us are going to start cutting corners too. And that's why you can't let it go more than once. And as the leader, I mentioned that business owner who wanted accountable employees, and he wasn't accountable himself. Again, the buck stops with you. You have to be the standard bearer. People are looking to you. And I don't care if you're a company of 10 people, if you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, maybe you have 1,000 employees, they're always looking at you. And if you don't believe me, you just go on social media, right? Anytime a CEO does something either egregious or, what the hell company was that? I think it was Apollo, and I could be wrong, but it's about a year ago. CEO got caught at a Coldplay concert with his head of HR. Literally, everybody's calling for them to resign, right? So, and that was a massive company. People looking to you. So if you're not holding yourself accountable, if you're telling employees, I need you to show up on time, and then you show up late. I need you to stay late, and then you never stay late. I need you to admit your mistakes, but then you never admit your mistakes. Why the hell should they do it? I mean, honestly, I don't care if this is your company. They don't care that it's your company. All they're saying is, I'm getting heat for doing the shit that you're not even doing. So guys, be the standard, would you? Identify how you want everybody else to be. And not only do it to their level, do it at a higher level. Create a standard that maybe they can't reach, but maybe it's a standard that they want to attain to reach. That's what you want. You're not trying to establish some kind of low-level, bullcrap standard that anybody can meet. That's not how you elevate your company. When we talk about solutions, so we really went over, all right, what is accountability? Why doesn't it get met? And I've already gone over some of this, so I just really, want to ram this home for you. Identify what are the important aspects of your business. Billing, turnover, retention, for the patients, our outcomes. Who is responsible for all of those? Who's responsible for every single number, metric, data point, result that you want? So you need to start identifying that person. And then knowing, all right, what does success look like for that person who's managing that thing? Do I know what success looks like for them? Do they know what success looks like for them? And honestly, does the rest of the team know what success looks like? Because it goes down the chain. It's not just a matter of, well, I communicated it to the manager. Great. Did the manager then communicate that to the employees? So if the employees are not, operating at their best, how can we expect the manager to get the best results? And do they have the authority to actually get what you're looking for them to achieve, right? Do you give them the responsibility to hire, fire, write people up? You need to give them the responsibilities that you all say you don't want to be in charge of anyway. And when we look at, measuring it, is it a data point that actually makes sense? And it also means knowing how often you are measuring your data, right? So if we're looking at, say, patient retention, do you want that to be every day? No. Weekly? Probably. More than a month? Hell no. Right? So it's also not just knowing what numbers do I need to, start tracking, but it's how often do I need to keep track of them? And then, does the standards that I've set forth, do they apply to me? So really, I want you to start from the beginning. Again, and starting from the beginning is understanding what are our standards. Do we know how to measure them? What happens when somebody violates them? When it comes to culture, you get what you tolerate. Does everybody here know what success actually looks like? And does everybody know what success looks like for the business, for their department, for themselves, success for a patient. That matters. Is it, we just get them out of pain? Maybe that's how you measure success. Somebody else, it's getting them back to being able to independently do their, ADLs. But does everybody understand the target that we're chasing? And then do your own actions match up with what you want to see from everybody else? Now, if you're not really sure, having the desire to have accountable employees, having that desire is one thing. And honestly, when you have a culture and you have employees who are built around accountability, you got something great. So all of us should aspire to do that. But if you're sitting there saying, well, gee, I don't even know where I'm at, or I definitely have some of these issues, or maybe there's conversations I don't have, or yes, I do have to ask certain employees, they ask me, I should say, the same question multiple times. Is it a me issue? Is it a them? So if you've listened to this and you just have some questions, or you're like, I think this is something that I'm dealing with, and you want some more clarity, I'm going to have a PDF for you guys that I really want you to go through. Like, it really helps you understand where are we actually having our challenges, because again, it's a sequence. It's not just, well, I got great standards. Okay, but then what about after that? Or, we have standards. We have the conversation with somebody, but they don't know the outcomes. So the PDF is going to help you identify, all right, what part is actually lacking? And for, honestly, a lot of you, it might be multiple. So really, I would say, number one, go to the show description, download the PDF, take your time to fill it out. Don't do it while you're watching Netflix. Like, really actually take a few minutes, take about 10 minutes to do this. And identify, and realistically, if it's better than you expected, congrats. But if it's maybe worse than what you expected, don't beat yourself up. First step to actually improving is having some self-awareness. And none of us, if we've never taken the time to self-reflect, none of us ever find out a ton of good stuff. It's usually, shit, there's a lot of bad stuff going on there, or just stuff that I didn't, I really didn't think I'd allow to happen. I really thought I was creating a strong standard here, and all right, I've let things slip a little bit. It happens. Most important thing is to identify it and then understand, all right, now what actions do I need to take? So that's why I just want you to go and order the PDF, and whatever one is, maybe, whatever section is the one that's really lacking for you, start there first. And if it's your standards, by all means, for all of you, definitely start there. Even if you have multiple ones, start with standards and then just go down the line. And if you don't know what the action plan looks like, you might fill it out and say, great, Dan, now I know exactly where my organization's at. Not that great. Or maybe it's pretty good, but I like it to be better. And you're not really sure what the hell to do next. Right? How do I actually now start keeping employees accountable? Because that is actually the hardest part. Yeah, the identification, that takes just a few minutes. The process of correcting the issue, that takes weeks, sometimes months, depending upon how long you've let a lot of these issues slide. So if you're looking at that saying, holy shit, I don't know what to do, I don't have the time, or whatever it may be. Maybe you're a clinician you're an owner who's still acting as a clinician. You're treating patients. So you're saying, I got to treat my own patients, hold myself accountable, have these conversations. I don't even know where to start. Honestly, just, I would say, like, yes, do the PDF. Just book a discovery call, man. Like, I know I talked to you guys about this. It's completely complimentary. It's really just to help you guys out. Just take advantage of it. Get some ideas. Even if you say, I don't want to work with anybody, just get some ideas where you may be lacking. Because again, when you're involved so heavily in the business, it's just really hard to see everything that's going around you. Even if you're 100% certain, I got a pulse on this place, there's something that you're not seeing. We've all been there. It doesn't make you a crappy leader or a crappy owner if you don't see everything. Like, that is literally human nature. So, pick our brain for half an hour. Run some ideas by us. That is literally what those calls are for. I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. This is something that's really important for every organization to really thrive long term. Guys, I really appreciate it. I'll catch you next time.